A lad in a wheelchair came up to the King's Guard with a dream everyone thought was impossible. But one surprising moment changed everything. What happened after left his family crying and the watching people amazed. Here's what went on. But before we go on, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Subscribe to the channel if you respect the Royal Guards. The early sun made long shadows across the big house where the king lives, as Sarah wheeled her 10-year-old son Billy towards the front gates. His eyes were bright with a thrill that made him seem younger. His little hands held the arms of his wheelchair tight as he saw the King's Guards for the first time. "Mum, do you think they'll be as big as they look in the photos?" Billy's voice wobbled with excitement, making some tourists smile as they walked by. His mum squeezed his shoulder gently as she pushed him through the people gathering. "Even bigger, my love," Sarah said, her voice warm, hiding years of secret struggles. She watched her son's face light up when he saw Guard Jack Thompson, his red coat shining in the morning sun, his big furry hat making him look even taller. Billy sat up straighter in his wheelchair, copying the guard's perfect straight back without thinking. His eyes looked at every bit of the uniform, the shiny brass buttons, the white belt across the red coat, the special gun held perfectly still. Even after the accident, even after everything changed, his dream stayed the same. One day, somehow, he would wear that red coat. "Mum," he said, his voice full of that mix of wanting it badly and hope that had helped them through so many hard times. "I want to get nearer, please." His eyes never left the guard's perfect uniform, looking at every detail as if learning it by heart. Sarah waited for a moment, then nodded. Sometimes, she knew, the best thing a mum could do was let go a bit. As she watched her son wheel himself forward with practice and a will to get it right, she couldn't help but notice how his back got straighter, how his movements became more exact, as if the King's Guard being there made something stronger come out in him. A small group of tourists had gathered close by, noticing Billy's real interest in the guard. An old lady with kind eyes touched Sarah's arm gently. "Your son," she said softly. "He seems to have so much respect for the guards. It's not often you see that in someone so young." Sarah's eyes never left Billy as she spoke, watching him put his wheelchair carefully at a good distance from Guard Thompson. "He's dreamed of being a King's Guard since he was old enough to walk," she started, her voice catching a bit on the last word. "Before the accident." Several tourists moved nearer, drawn by the feeling in her voice. Sarah hardly ever spoke about that day, but something about this moment, watching her son's firm will, made her say the words she usually kept locked away. "It was just a normal Sunday," she went on, her voice very quiet. "Billy was playing in the park, showing his friends how King's Guards march. He'd been practicing for weeks, getting the timing perfect." She stopped, taking a deep breath. The driver was sending a text, didn't see him until it was too late. A shared murmur of sympathy came from the small crowd. Sarah's hands held each other tight, knuckles white with the fear she remembered. The doctors said it was amazing he lived at all. The spine nerve damage was bad. "They told us," her voice broke a bit. "They told us he would never walk again." The old lady squeezed Sarah's arm, helping her. His dad couldn't cope. The things he had to do, the doctor's bills, the looking after Billy all the time. One morning he just left, said he needed a new start, a new life. The bitterness in her voice was covered by a deeper strength. But Billy never lost his spirit. Even in the hospital he would ask the nurses to put his bed so he could practice his salutes. She watched as Billy changed his position a bit, his movements showing the same exactness he'd always loved in the King's Guards. Every night, before bed, he still stands to attention in his wheelchair, as straight as he can. Says a King's Guard never sits badly, no matter what. The crowd had grown bigger, their own cameras and maps forgotten as they listened to Sarah's story. A young dad held his daughter closer, his own eyes wet with feeling. "The other kids at school," Sarah went on, her voice getting stronger with pride. "They tried to make fun of him at first, said he couldn't be a king's guard from a wheelchair, but Billy just smiled and told them that a true guard's strength is in the heart, not the legs." She smiled softly, remembering lots of evenings spent watching programs about the king's house, Billy making them rewind bits again and again until he could copy every movement, every action perfectly. He's learned every detail of their uniforms, every step of their drills. Sometimes I'll find him in his room late at night, practicing their exact head turns in the mirror. The old lady wiped her eyes with the tissue. "Such a strong will in someone so young," she said quietly. "And you've raised him alone all this time?" Sarah nodded, her chin lifting a bit. "A mother's love doesn't need help," she said firmly. "Every time I see him push his limits, push against what the doctors said was impossible, it gives me strength too. He's taught me more about bravery than I could ever teach him." She watched as Billy's hand moved to his head in a perfect salute, his back straight like a soldier's, even in his wheelchair. "This visit," she said softly. "It's been his dream for so long. He saved every birthday pound, counted down the days, said he needed to see the real guards close up, to learn from them." The morning sun had risen higher, making Billy's shadow lie next to that of Guard Thompson, one small and sitting, one tall and standing, but both somehow equally proud in their own way. Billy wheeled himself nearer to Guard Thompson, each movement careful and respectful. The guard kept looking forward, but his ears heard every word of Sarah's story that had come across the yard. Each detail hit something deep inside him, waking up memories he'd tried so hard to forget. His own son, Robert, would have been about Billy's age now. The thought came without being asked, as it always did during his quieter times on duty. Pictures went through his mind. A little boy's bedroom, walls covered with pictures of King's Guards, a child's voice saying, "Daddy, just one more story about the palace." But Robert would never grow up to hear those stories. One rainy night, one missed bedtime because of guard duty, one terrible accident, and his whole world had broken. His wife's last words still echoed in his ears. What kind of father chooses his job over his own son? She'd left the next day, leaving a house full of ghosts and a man full of guilt. Now, as he stood stiff in his special uniform, another young boy's voice pulled at his heart. "Excuse me, sir." Billy's voice was clear and strong, with the same respect he'd practiced lots of times in front of his mirror at home. "I hope it's okay that I'm a bit closer than the others. I want to learn everything I can about being a King's Guard." Guard Thompson kept his position, but something changed inside him. The boy's wheelchair was closer than the rules usually allowed, but there was nothing rude or challenging in his being there. Instead, there was a realness that reminded him painfully of Robert. "I've been practicing," Billy went on, his voice lower, more like a secret. "Mum says I can't do the march, but I've got the head turns perfect, 70 degrees exactly, just like in the training book. Did you know it takes 3 hours to get your uniform ready each morning?" A light wind carried the smell of rain coming, moving the fur of Thompson's big hat. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Billy's hands holding his wheelchair's arms with the same firm grip a young guard might hold his gun during a check. "The doctors." Billy's voice wobbled a bit, but didn't break. "They say I'll never walk again, that I should find a different dream." He stopped, then added with quiet firmness, "But they don't understand. Being a King's Guard isn't just about walking, it's about standing for something bigger than yourself. That's what I tell everyone." Guard Thompson felt a single tear in the corner of his eye. Rules said it should stay there, but the wetness made his sight blurry for a moment. In all his years of service, through rain and sun, through tourists' jokes and special events, Nothing had threatened his strong face like this boy's simple, firm belief. "I know you can't talk to me," Billy went on, "and that's okay. That's part of what makes you special, doing your duty no matter what. But," he waited, then spoke with the straightness only children can manage, "I wanted you to know that one day, somehow I'll stand beside you, even if the doctors say it's impossible." The tear shook, about to fall. Thompson blinked it back, keeping his statue-like pose, even as his heart banged in his chest. He could hear Sarah in the background, still sharing their story with the growing crowd, her voice full of both pain and pride. But it was Billy's being there that filled his mind. This young boy who, even with everything life had thrown at him, still believed in the power of standing tall. "You know," Billy went on, his voice like he was telling a secret, "some kids at school laugh when I tell them my dream. They say I'm silly for wanting to be a King's Guard when I can't even stand up." He sat himself up in his wheelchair, straightening his back even more. "But I think they're the silly ones. They only see the standing still part. They don't understand what it really means." Guard Thompson stayed still, but each word went deep into his heart. He remembered Robert saying similar things, standing up for his dad's job against playground jokes. The memory hurt like a new wound. "My dad." Billy's voice got quieter, meant only for the guard's ears. "He left because he said looking after me was too hard, that some things are impossible to fix." There was no feeling sorry for himself in his voice, only a simple telling of fact. "But I think he just didn't understand about being strong, not like you do, not like Mum does." A drop of rain fell, landing on Thompson's cheek, mixing with the tear he couldn't quite hold back. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Billy's reflection in his shiny boots, small, firm, unbreakable. "Sometimes at night," Billy went on, "when my legs hurt really bad, I think about standing here like you, perfect posture, perfect control, perfect pride. It helps me be brave. Mum doesn't know, but I can feel little tingles sometimes. The doctors say it's just pretend feelings, that I shouldn't get my hopes up, but I think—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "I think sometimes you have to believe in impossible things to make them possible." Thompson felt his throat get tight. How many nights had he stood guard, carrying the weight of his own impossible loss? How many times had he wished for one more chance to hold his son, to explain why duty mattered, to make things right? "I brought something to show you," Billy said, reaching into his pocket carefully. He took out a worn photo, holding it up. "This is me before the accident. I was practicing the Guards' March in our back garden. Mum took the picture right before—" His voice stopped for a moment, before getting strong again. "I keep it to remind me who I am, not who people say I have to be." The photo shook a bit in Billy's hand. A sunny day, a young boy in a pretend uniform, standing proudly. Thompson couldn't turn to look straight at it, but the picture shown out of the corner of his eye made another tear roll down his cheek. "The hardest part isn't the wheelchair," Billy said quietly, putting the photo away carefully. "It's when people look at you with pity, like you're not whole. But when I see you standing here, I remember that real strength isn't in legs or arms, it's in here." He touched his chest over his heart. "That's what I want to guard someday, not just a palace, but everything it stands for." Sarah's voice still came from the crowd behind them, but Billy seemed to be in his own world, sharing his deepest thoughts with the silent guard, who somehow felt safer than any other friend. "Can I tell you a secret?" Billy's voice got softer, as if he were sharing something very special. "Sometimes when I'm alone, I imagine myself standing up, just for a moment. The doctors say it's not likely, that I should be careful, but deep down, I believe that if I could stand, even for a second, it would change everything. He paused, a spark of hope in his eyes. And today feels different. I think this could be the day. Thompson's heart raced under his perfect uniform. Every feeling, every fatherly want screamed at him to break the rules, to tell this brave young boy that nothing was impossible, that dreams don't die in wheelchairs or rainy accidents or empty homes. But duty kept him still, even as another tear went down his cheek. "You're crying," Billy said softly, without judging. "Mum says real soldiers cry too. They just know when and why it matters." "I think," he took a deep breath, "I think today matters. Would you," his voice wobbled a bit, "would you watch me try, just once? I know you can't help or move, but having you here, it makes me feel stronger." Billy put his hands firmly on his wheelchair's arms, his small fingers holding the metal with firm strength. The crowd behind him had gone quiet, Sarah's story stopping as she noticed her son's strange position. The morning air seemed to hold its breath. "Mum!" Billy called out, his voice steady even with the shaking in his arms. "I need to try something. Please don't stop me." There was a quiet power in his voice that Sarah had never heard before. The voice of someone who had made a life-changing choice. "Billy, love." Sarah's voice shook with worry as she started forward. "Be careful. You know what the doctors said about—" "I know, Mum," he cut in gently, never taking his eyes off the guard before him. "But sometimes you have to believe in something bigger than what doctors say. Guard Thompson is going to watch over me. Nothing bad can happen when a Kingsguard is watching." The muscles in Billy's arms got tight as he started to push himself up. Guard Thompson stayed still, but his heart banged against his red coat. Every bit of him wanted to reach out, to help, to protect, just as he'd not done for his own son. But something told him that this moment needed to happen on its own. Billy's arms shook with the effort as he reached halfway between sitting and standing. His face had gone pale, but his eyes stayed clear and focused. "You know what they never understood?" he managed, between careful breaths. "Standing isn't just about legs. It's about—" He pushed harder, getting another inch. "It's about standing for something." A shared gasp went through the crowd as Billy's body kept rising. Sarah took a step forward without thinking, but stopped herself. This was her son's moment, his fight, his amazing thing. "In training," Billy went on, his voice getting stronger as his body rose higher. "King's guards learn to stand for hours without moving. They stand through rain," another inch gained, "through heat," his legs shook but held, "through everything life throws at them." His voice had the same steel that had helped him get through the accident, the leaving, the lots of hours of getting better. He was nearly upright now, his legs shaking, but somehow holding weight they hadn't held in years. The morning sun caught the tears going down his face, tears not of pain, but of pure will. "Because that's what guards do," Billy said, his voice ringing with winning as he got fully upright. "They stand, no matter what, for something bigger than themselves." The quiet in the yard was total. Sarah's tears fell, her hands over her heart as she watched her son stand tall, something the best doctors in the country had said was impossible. The old lady who had first spoken to her held her arm, helping her, her own eyes wet with feeling. Billy stood there, shaking but upright, his chest moving up and down with effort, but his face shining with a light inside that seemed to light up the whole yard. For a moment it didn't matter that his legs shook, that every muscle was pulled tight. He was standing, really standing, before his hero. Then slowly, carefully, he started to lift his right foot. The crowd's shared taking in of breath could be heard as he tried what seemed beyond impossible. Not just standing, but walking. His foot went inches above the ground, moving in the air as he fought for balance. It was at this exact moment that everything started to go wrong. Billy's body, having done one amazing thing, couldn't quite manage another. As his balance went and he started to fall forward, time seemed to slow down. Sarah's scream got stuck in her throat. The crowd moved forward, not able to help, and Guard Thompson had a choice to make in that split second. As Billy started to fall, Guard Thompson made the kind of choice that shows a life. Rules, duty, and doing things the usual way all said he should stay where he was. But something deeper, something that spoke of dads and sons, of lost chances and bravery found, moved through him like electricity. His special gun hit the ground with a clang as he jumped forward, catching Billy in strong arms before he could hit the stone yard. The sudden movement was so smooth, so exact, that it seemed more like a dance than saving someone. Time went back to its normal speed as Guard Thompson held the boy safe, his big furry hat knocked a bit to one side, his perfect straight back finally broken. "I've got you, son." Thompson spoke for the first time, his voice thick with feeling. "I've got you. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen in all my years of service." Tears flowed down his face now, no longer held back by rules or pretending. Billy, still shaking from the effort, looked up at the guard in wonder. You moved," he whispered, his own eyes wide with tears. "You broke the rules for me." "Some things," Thompson replied, his voice breaking, "are more important than rules." His arms tightened a bit around the boy, as if holding his own son one last time. "Some moments mean we choose between what's right and what's needed." Sarah had reached them now, her hands moving worriedly over her son. "Billy, love, are you all right? Are you hurt?" But her words stopped as she saw the look between her son and the guard, a look of deep knowing that went beyond the moment. "I stood," Billy said proudly, his face glowing even though he was tired. "I really stood. Did you see, Mum? Did you see me stand like a real guard?" Thompson changed his hold on Billy, helping him more safely. "You did more than stand," he said, his professional way completely gone in the face of real feeling. "You showed everyone here what true strength looks like." His voice caught as he added, "My son, my Robert, would have been proud to stand beside someone like you." The words came out then, as if a dam had broken. Thompson told them about Robert, about the accident, about the weight of loss and duty he'd carried quietly for so long. His tears fell onto Billy's shoulder as he spoke, but his voice got stronger with each word. "I thought I had failed as a father," he admitted, still holding Billy safely. "Failed because I chose duty over being there that night. But watching you just now," he looked into Billy's eyes, "you've shown me that being a guard, being a father, being a man, it's all about the same thing. Standing up for what matters, no matter the cost." Billy reached up and straightened Thompson's big furry hat carefully. "No guard should ever be ashamed of doing the right thing," he said with a cleverness beyond his years. "That's what Mum always tells me, and you did the right thing just now. You chose to guard me when I needed it most." Thompson looked down at this amazing boy in his arms, seeing in him both the son he'd lost and the strength he'd thought gone forever. His uniform was no longer perfectly neat, his back no longer like a soldier's, but in that moment he felt more like a true guard than ever before. "Now then," he said, getting himself together a bit, "shall we show your mother what a proper King's Guard's walk looks like?" His voice was gentle but strong, with the promise of help and understanding. "I think you've earned your first lesson." "Really?" Billy's face lit up with a joy that seemed to light up the whole yard. "You'll teach me?" Thompson nodded, carefully changing his hold to give better support. First rule of being a king's guard, he said, his voice becoming a gentle teacher's, is to know when to stand alone and when to accept help from your fellow guards. He put himself at Billy's side, one arm safely around the boy's waist. Ready for your first steps as a guard in training. Sarah watched through tears as Thompson helped Billy find his balance. The guard's movements were exact, yet gentle, each change made with the care of someone holding something very precious. The crowd around them stayed quiet, seeing something much more meaningful than the usual tourist things. Back straight, Thompson taught softly. Chin up, that's it. A king's guard always leads with pride. His own voice shook a bit as he added, just like you've been doing all along, though I don't think you knew it. Billy concentrated hard, his small body tight with effort, but his face shining with wanting to do it. With Thompson's help, he lifted his right foot again, but this time there was no fall. The foot moved forward, stayed up, and then put itself firmly on the stone yard. "Mom!" Billy called out, his voice full of wonder. "Mom, look! I'm walking!" Sarah's hands were over her heart, tears going down her face as she watched her son take another step, and then another. Each movement was amazing, each step a win over every doctor's words, every problem, every moment of sadness. "You know," Thompson said, as they moved slowly forward, "being a king's guard isn't just about standing still or marching in lines." His voice had the weight of years of service and personal loss. "It's about standing up for what's right, about helping others stand when they can't do it alone. You've understood that better than most guards I've trained." They had nearly reached Sarah now. Billy's legs were shaking with being tired, but his spirit seemed to fly higher with each step. "Do you think," he asked between careful breaths, "do you think Robert would have liked being a guard too?" Thompson's step faltered for just a moment, but his support never went away. "Yes," he said softly. "Yes, I think he would have. And I think," his voice broke a bit, "I think he would have been honored to serve alongside someone as brave as you." When they finally reached Sarah, she held them both in a tight hug, her tears mixing with their own. "Thank you," she whispered to Thompson, the words carrying the weight of years of struggling alone. "Thank you for giving him this moment." Thompson carefully helped Billy back into his wheelchair, but there was nothing of giving up in the movement. Instead, it felt like the end of one lesson and the promise of more to come. "Same time next week?" he asked, his official guard's voice coming back, but now with a warmth that hadn't been there before. A proper guard needs regular training, after all. Billy's face lit up even brighter, if that was possible. "Really? You mean it?" At Thompson's nod, he straightened in his wheelchair and gave a perfect salute, one guard to another. Thompson returned the salute with formal exactness, his eyes shining. "Until next week, then, Guard Billy." He turned to go back to his post, then stopped. "And Billy, thank you. Thank you for helping me stand again, too." As Thompson went back to his position, getting his special gun with practiced ease, Sarah heard him whisper something that sounded like, "This one's for you, Robert." The morning sun caught the brass buttons of his uniform, but it was his face that truly shone, as if some long-carried weight had finally been lifted. 2 broken families had found healing in the shadow of the king's house, where a boy's impossible dream had taught them all what it really meant to stand tall. What would you do if you saw something amazing happen? The impossible becoming possible through bravery and kindness? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did this story move you to tears, or remind you of a time when someone went against what was expected? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, keep believing amazing things happen every day.